Okay, hopefully we can get close to finishing this. If not, finish tic-tac-toe here. We'll probably do it in 2 videos. So now I want to put in a representation of the state of the game. So you can see the board yourself, but it'd be hard to check to see if the player has won based on the graphics. The graphics are really just there for the player to know the state of the game. It's not really for the program itself. It's more for the player. But when the program needs to make a decision or decide if the game has ended, we need basically a more abstract and more mathematical representation of the state of the game. So I'm going to put that in. Maybe underneath the player. This I'll say let. I'll call it state equal. And this is going to be an array. I mean, I could do it like, that sort of a thing. That's an array. But I'm going to space it out so it's a little bit easier to read. So I'm going to put the brackets here. And then each inside of this array are going to be other arrays. So this is called nested array. So I'm not sure if you are aware. Nesting, I don't know if you know of nesting dolls, but you should be able to see, my computer will load, this sort of a doll. You've got you open up the bigger doll, there's another doll. You open up that one, there's another doll. And then inside is a small little doll. So nesting just means you have something of the same type, a list, inside of a list. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Inside of this array, I have another array. I actually have multiple arrays. They're not all inside of each other. There's 3 inside of the main one. And each of these is going to represent the row. So in each one, I'm going to put in a value that represents that cell. So I'm going to say, when I want nothing to be there, I'm going to put in the word null. And that kind of means it's purposefully left empty. So it's different than not having anything there. It's on purpose. So I'm going to have 3 null values for the first row, second row, and third row, and that represents the state of the game. I will put in console.log state, and if you run the game now, you should see the state of the game is represented as a bunch of null cells. That doesn't change when I click. So one thing I want to have happen is for the game to update the state when I click. So let's do that. And I don't want it to go unless the cell I click is null. Because once I put a value in, I don't want anybody else, the next player, to be able to overwrite the value. So all of this stuff that happens when I click, I'm actually going to put it inside of an if statement. So if state, well, I guess first I need to get the row and column that we're in. So let's take what we have right now and take a look. We get the mouse position when we click, and then from there we figure out the center of the cell that we're in. I'm actually going to change this a little bit. I'm going to get the row number, and I'm going to get the column number. And the row number, we've already figured this out. So for the x coordinate would actually be our column. So I'm going to take this, and I said row, I believe. No. Yeah, the x value is the column, and the y value should be the row. So there we get the row and the column. I can actually change these now to be based off of that. So I calculate the row that I'm in, I calculate the column that I'm in, and then from that I multiply by 100 and add 50 to get that turned into pixels for the center of that cell. So nothing should change here. If I play, oh, things are a little off here. What did I do? This was supposed to be column and this was supposed to be row. That's what I did. Keep switching up my X and Y. There we go. Okay. Now that's good because now I know the row and column. And so what I want to do is once I calculate the row and column, I'm going to say if state row column. So if there's a value there, I don't want it to do anything. I want to only do something if there isn't. So if I do this, let me just console.log so you can see what happens. I'll put a space around it so you can kind of read it better. All right, let's see what happens. I'll click, where do I have if? Here. So I'll go. If I click, it reads this, so it figures out what row and what column, and then it checks that row and column from the state object. So when I click here, it checks this value, and it sees that it's null. Now, if I put exclamation before it, the way null gets interpreted, like if I put it in an if statement like this, is it will be read as false. If there's nothing there, it says false, like if it doesn't exist. But if there is something there, it's treated as though it's true. So right now, this will be read as false. But if I put in an exclamation in front of it, that stands for the not operator. So whatever the value is, the Boolean value, it flips it. So if it's true, it becomes false because it's not that thing. So if that thing is true, it's not that, so it's false. And if it's false, then the exclamation point turns it into true. It flips it. So if there's nothing there, null, it would normally consider that to be false, but with the exclamation, it will flip it to true. So let's try that. And notice it's saying true because everything's null. So it's going to, and then it says not that, so it's going to think of it as true. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say if there is nothing, if that state does not have a value, then I will do stuff. So I'm going to copy these lines and I will put them in here. I'm going to indent and get rid of that extra line. And so this will now only happen if I click a cell that's empty. But once I do that, I also want to record the change. So now I'm going to say, well, state row column, so where I click, I want to set that equal to the player's value. So if it's an X, I'm going to put an X there. If it's player O, I'm going to put an O there. And then, instead of logging the state, I'll log the state at the beginning, but I'm also going to log it after I click something. So let's try that. Actually, I'll log it here, so outside of the if statement. So let me try that. If I click, it draws my X, and now it records an X in that spot. If I click again, it doesn't flip the player. It sees the click. It doesn't overwrite the value because it's not empty anymore, so it won't do this unless it's empty. It sees that it's not null anymore, and so it won't go. It only does this if this is empty. So this isn't empty. So I'm still on player O. It didn't accept it. I could try it again. It just won't go. But then if I click somewhere else, it flips and it draws the mark. And now you can see that O is here. So now we're recording the state of the game. and we can use that to calculate if the game is over, if somebody has won. We can also control which cells you can write to, depending on which have already been written to. So we're now able to make a smarter game, I guess, now that we have this data structure representing the state of the game. Okay, so that looks good to me. Everything's looking good. I think all I need to do now, I can not log if I don't want to. I don't have to log this state anymore. Hopefully you get the idea. I think all I need left is to check for victories, check for wins. So I guess I'll do that in the next video.